Culture detective.
What?
Culture detective.
What? Little Syndrome?
Yo.
Is that you, Little Syndrome?
Athena ain't real.
What? What are you
Athena
talking
ain't
about?
real.
Where are you? Hey, Spain, what's up? It's the Culture Detective here, investigating your favorite albums, and today I'm going to quickly do an album review on the latest King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard album, Butterfly 3000. So King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard is an Australian super band, and they have been one of my favorite bands of our generation because they have put out one amazing album after another. Of course, we have I'm in Your Mind Fuzz, which is very intense, at the same time surreal, psychedelic rock album. We have Nonagon Infinity, which is even more intense, noisy, loud, whack. I love it. Flying Microtonal Banana is the first album of King Gizz that I've ever listened to, and it goes for a more microtonal pop folk flavor that just feels really tribal, and I just really love that. And aside from that, they also released 5 albums in total in the year 2017, and most of them are actually pretty damn good. And of course, we have the 2 back-to-back albums they released in 2019, Fishing for Fishies, which is really soft, folky, and playful, and then the incredibly noisy and angry thrash metal album that they did for Infest the Rat's Nest. And then they released KG, which is one half of their 2-parted self-titled album, and on this album they dabbled into Turkish house, and stoner metal, and country folk, and it's actually a pretty good album. And earlier this year they released LW, which is the second half, which I don't think is as good as KG, but still has its highlights like Static Electricity. Now we have the band dabbling into psych pop and Indietronica on Butterfly 3000, where of course once again they radically changed their musical style and just focus on that for an entire album. And yeah, I really want to love this album. I mean, King Gizz, again, is one of my favorite bands in this generation, but unfortunately, Butterfly 3000 is pretty disappointing in my opinion. I don't know why, because usually King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard is good at making any kinds of music. I mean, again, Turkish house. Who would have thought? But they pulled it off, and it became one of my favorite tracks last year. And also the thrash metal album that they did, actually pretty great. But this album just feels bland and kind of uninspired even at times. The album opens off with Yours, with a basic drum beat, soft twinkling keys, and Stu Mackenzie's very soft vocals. And his vocals are so soft, the keyboards and the drums just completely overshadow it. But usually when they're performing like an intense garage rock song and the vocals get buried, it's almost like the vocals are part of the instrumentals, and when all the instrumentals come together, they all sound fantastic. But for a psych pop album, it just sounds kinda awkward and sort of buried in the mix. And the chords on this track is just really bland. And then we have the track Shanghai, and the keyboards on this track sound like they come from like a toy. Like, you know how sometimes you can buy toys that emit sounds? The keyboards sound like they come out of a toy. And I'm fine with that. It definitely provides an interesting texture to the track. And then we have the keyboards on this track, which basically goes up and down a pentatonic scale. And the verses are really easygoing, which I really like, but the choruses just end up feeling stale. That rhymes. Then we have the track Dreams, where the keyboards and Stu's vocals sort of sync up together. And again, whenever that happens, Stu's vocals are just completely buried under the keyboards. I can't really hear his vocals really well, and it just sounds kind of awkward, given that they're going for a psych pop direction. In fact, the chords barely change on this track, which makes this track feel kind of tedious at times. We have lyrics where the band essentially sings about not wanting to leave the dream, or wanting to wake up in the dream. And I really like these lyrical topics, except the lyrics don't really dive deep into the topic at all. It just goes over like dreams and then that's it. And I really like the weird psychedelic sequence, which happens sometimes on this track, but never really flourishes into anything until it is carried over to the next track, Blue Morpho, which is basically an entire track built surrounding that weird little alien psych sequence, and Blue Morpho is one of my favorite tracks on the entire album. The instrumental breakdowns on this track, the drums, the keyboards, they're all so psychedelic and surreal. I love the chord progression on this track, and the harps. Oh my god, the rush of harps is so mystical. I absolutely love it. And then this streak sort of continues for the next two tracks as well. We have Interior People, which is a rock flavored jam with sweet chord progressions, wavy synths. In the middle of the track, we have a bit of a reprise to the keyboards from the track Shanghai, which is pretty nice. And the track ends off like Radiohead's Body Snatchers, where the chord progressions turn sour and cold, and then it goes for one final explosion, and it sounds amazing, actually. I really like it. I mean, yeah, Body Snatchers, but it sounds amazing. Then we have the track Catching Smoke, and yeah, it does sound like a Kanye West song. It does sound like King Gizzard is trying to make a Kanye song with the thumping beats and the loud claps. It's very Kanye flavored, but no. Let's leave Kanye out of this. Leave Kanye out of this. This song has quirky rhythms, and the verses are really tongue-in-cheek. They're really playful. I don't see why they had to extend this song into 6.5 minutes long, but still, as far as the song goes, it's pretty damn good. And then the album continues its disappointing streak, unfortunately. We have 2.02 Killer Year, where the song starts off with woo! And usually when King Gizz does that, it just explodes into just a rock explosion of guitars and drums, and it's wild. But this track is literally one of the tamest tracks on the entire album, so that whoa literally built up to nothing, and it actually sounds kind of comedic. And I do love the runny keyboards and drums in the second half of the track, but overall it's just a very tame track. And then we have Black Hot Soup, which has a solid chord progression, a solid song structure, and I like it at first because the song has no dynamic whatsoever. It just stays the same the whole track. And then we have the track Ya Love, and the verses are really repetitive. The verses is basically ya love, ya love, ya love, and that's the whole verse. And we get these bright keyboards, thumping drums. I do like the chorus with its lovey-dovey lyrics. I'm so excited to hang out with you. I'm so excited to smell you. And then the album ends off with the title track, Butterfly 3000, with its rubbery keyboards, and I actually like this track. This track is equal parts moody and atmospheric, but also equal parts conclusive. It feels like it wraps up the entire album nicely and neatly, and the band really works their electronics on this track with the blaring beats and cycling drums on this track, and I actually kind of like it. It's actually not bad. But that is as far as this album goes. Still, overall, I think this album has its flaws. I think a lot of the tracks don't have much dynamic, and they're a little bit bland at times. But still, there are also highlights on this album that I really like. So, yeah, I'm sorry if I offend any of y'all, because I'm a huge fan of King Gizzard too. Trust me, I'm a huge fan too. But this album just kind of let me down. I'm sorry. My favorite track here is Blue Morpho, and my least favorite is 2.02 Killer Year. I'm giving King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizards Butterfly 3000. Strong 5 out of 10. So if you listen to the latest King Gizz album for 1 to 10, how much you rate, like, and subscribe if you want more, and thanks for watching. I will be reviewing the new Maroon 5, maybe Migos, Chai Cemetery, Japanese Breakfast, Mirror, and maybe M. Dal Mokhtar, Afrique Victime.